Greetings, everyone, and welcome to We Are ACEDS, streaming live on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. My name is Mike Quartararo, and I am the president of ACEDS. Today, we are joined by my friend Jason Velasco, founder of eDiscovery Advisory, a technology and provider agnostic advisory firm based in New York, but working almost anywhere. Jason, thanks so much for making time to join us today.
Hey, Mike. Good to see you again. How you doing today?
I'm good. I hope you and yours are well in this odd time we're living in.
That's true. I got my ACEDS dancing in. Now I feel ready to go and talk to you a little bit.
I love the way We Are ACEDS live starts. All right. For those who don't know, let's dive in a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your history in the eDiscovery industry, and tell us a little bit about eDiscovery Advisory and what you do there.
Well, thank you, Mike. I really appreciate the opportunity to and the collaboration with ACEDS that I've had over the years. I've been in the eDiscovery space for 20 plus years now. Most people kind of originally got to know me as one of the founders of Renew Data, which was one of the early eDiscovery companies that processed all the backup tapes for the Enron data set. And so we were there kind of starting to figure out how to go from computer forensics to trying to process petabytes of data, and worked with a lot of different providers over time. I was very lucky to really, in my role at Renew Data, to really participate with organizations like the EDRM and ACEDS as a thought leader, and working with organizations to bring enlightenment around the eDiscovery process. So over the last few years, I've spent a lot of time working in-house. I worked for one of the large financial organizations, Global Financial Institute, as well as for one of the regulators as an in-house consultant. So what we've done now is we've actually taken all of that experience, that in-house experience, that broad breadth of experience that we've had with the working with providers and a significant amount of different technologies, and created a kind of a global advisory practice, which I'll get into in a moment, that really focuses on helping people understand and improve eDiscovery workflow, automation, technologies, in a manner that is, as you mentioned before, agnostic and provider and technology agnostic. So we work with just about all the different providers on the marketplace.
Awesome. That sounds incredible. Sounds exciting. I know you're ACEDS certified and have been so for a while. Tell me a little bit, what does that mean to you? What is the value of the ACEDS certification to you?
Well, the value is, of course, as one that was, I felt like as a early pioneer of eDiscovery, much like yourself, Mike, it was like, do I really need certification? It's something I've been doing for 15 years. And when I finally got the opportunity, when I was doing some consulting work with Deutsche Bank, we had the opportunity to kind of bring that in for the global group, and I really took a lead in terms of helping people kind of bring that together and get the team certified and through the training. And as a leader, I wanted to be one of the first ones doing it and get my certification first, right? So I jumped into it. I took the courses, I studied, and I took the test, and I sweated it, and I did great on the things that I was really good at, like the strategy, the IG side, the processing piece, the collection piece, of course, which is one of my key backgrounds. But I tell you, I really struggled with the review side. I'm not a review person. I've never done a workflow and review myself. I usually hand the data off to the review teams and they handle it. So it was really cool to kind of see how the test actually validated what my experience really had and my knowledge was. So I thought that was a really cool experience, and I've always been an advocate for making sure that people get some kind of certification to help with their career.
No, we appreciate that. And yeah, not everybody can cover the entire spectrum. It's a pretty broad field, even though I think some people would say we're niche. There's a lot to unpack in eDiscovery. All right. So tell us, we launched here today by saying that eDiscovery Advisory is sort of a technology and provider agnostic organization. What does that mean? What do we mean by technology agnostic and provider agnostic? What are you doing that sets you apart?
Well, here's the key thing, right? I've done a lot of different work with, many different providers and technologies across my career. And one of the things that I didn't want to do is I didn't want to pick sides. I think there's a lot of good technology out there. There's a lot of great providers out there that are providing good services to their corporations. I don't want to be in a position where I have to advocate for one or the other, because again, it's going to depend on the specific use case. It's going to depend on the particular scenario. window, budget. There's so many different criteria that go into deciding what a workflow is. And this is what I was doing really in-house, is looking at the different technologies that are out there. For those that also know me, I was part of the EDJ group, or the eDiscovery Journal group, with Greg Buckles and Barry Murphy early days, where we tried to really look and as a kind of an industry analyst, trying to understand where all those fit in. So taking that experience, I wanted to be able to really work with people and then help law firms and corporations and organizations really look at, what are you really trying to do? We want to make efficient workflows. We want to save money by having good, efficient technology solutions. And we want to reduce our risk and having defensibility around it. And the things that we do that with is through automation and workflow and playbooks. How do you pull those things together? And so again, regardless of the technology or the provider, that's what we would do. That's what we do best. And and we're happy to work with all the different providers. I've got a client, for example, that and we'll talk, I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about now with M365 stuff, which we can get to in a second. But I've got one client, they're using M365 for certain things, and then what they do is as they go into production or third-party review, they use a hosted solution. And so they've decided on that, and we integrated the workflows and created some efficiencies and cost savings around that.
Sure. And I know as an organization that tries to be Switzerland in the eDiscovery space, I know there's some challenges there, but look, your loyalty is to your client, I would imagine, first.
Of course.
So let me ask you this. I know you've been working with a lot of small to medium-sized businesses. Tell us a little bit about what your clients look like. I understand you've created a service. I did a little research before the call. You've created a service that you're calling M365 eDiscovery as a service. Tell us about that. Tell us a little bit about your client base.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I think a lot of the clients that I'm working with right now are the ones that are really underserved in eDiscovery, because people want to go where the money is naturally, because that's where the clients are. Right? You want to serve those clients. What I've discovered is that there's a really specific niche for kind of small and medium, or SMB businesses that have a need for eDiscovery. They may not have a lot of eDiscovery. They may have 5 to 10 kind of cases per year or requests they have. They may get some now up and coming DSARs, or data subject access requests, or third-party requests that don't require the level of Herculean effort and defensibility and all those wonderful things that, with all the documentation that needs to be done in a normal eDiscovery process. And so we've been working with clients and saying, okay, let's take a reasonable approach, right? Because eDiscovery and legal is all about reasonability, at least from my experience, or tries to be at least. Yeah, it's like, let's be reasonable about things. And we've been looking at and we've come up with an approach using Microsoft M365 that we're calling M365 eDiscovery as a service, or eDOS, because everything's as a service these days. So we with M365 eDOS is we've actually built an automation layer directly in M365 eDiscovery, so we can dip right into the core. It's called the eDiscovery core technology, reaches into the tenant with a very simple workflow and search criteria, and a very, very basic case management application built within Microsoft Teams, right? And so they can actually kick off things within their Microsoft Teams environment, be able to track their particular cases, be able to run search criteria, track and put those approaches using automation, again, with integrating all of those reports and all those things coming out of the M365 solution, all the way through within SharePoint. We save the documentation, so we've got defensible chain of custody. But the other thing that we have to tie this into is, because a lot, again, being underserved clients, they may not have counsel that is used to dealing with eDiscovery. So we've combined that with building eDiscovery playbooks with them. So here's our defensible approach. So they have documentation. We've integrated that with training. So we're actually doing a lot of training, kind of customized training within the M365 solution, whether it's in Advanced eDiscovery 2 or whether it's on our specific workflow, creating videos for them, hands-on training with them, and then also being able to capture that with all the automation. So it's a combination of a lot of different things. But what we've discovered when we did a kind of a comparison of if that client had used a traditional eDiscovery workflow where, okay, we're going to kick all of our data out of the M365 per mailbox and put it to an eDiscovery provider, we had about almost a 285% return on investment for the amount of money that they spent with us building this automation suite versus what they would have spent in year one. So I think that's a pretty impressive metric to capture.
That is awesome, and I'm always impressed by the idea that there are so many processes, and it's just shifting over to the corporate legal side for a moment.
Hmm.
There are processes that happen in the IG space. You said DSARs, right? The process is almost identical to a pure eDiscovery play. And so there's knowledge that you can leverage there. I love the idea of playbooks. Everywhere I've ever worked, there's been a playbook. I think it's just something that everybody should have. All right, so I want to pivot outside eDiscovery for a minute, because we talked in sort of preparation for this interview, and it struck me that I understand you are developing a COVID-19 vaccine scheduling site.
Yeah, it's been a pretty amazing exercise. So, I've been very blessed. So, even let me take a step back before we get into that. So, I've, as part of this journey, this journey that I've been on for the last couple of years, I was able to actually bring together some really good teams of people. And I believe in you had asked me in our prep situation, are you the founder, or what are you, and I really wanted to build an organization of peers, right? Whether, because everyone has different strengths, everyone has different roles to play,
Sure.
and I wanted to have a collaborative, very democratic, peer-based organization. So this is why you see my name as just advisor, right? I'm just an advisor, just like anybody else in our organization. And as I was going on this journey, I was able to find a couple of really key kind of partners to help me kind of build this organization. Michael Epstein, who I've worked with for 15 years from Renew Data and at Deutsche Bank, and some other organizations. And then I've also started working with a gentleman by the name of Jason Thompson, who's really an information governance, workflow, and knowledge management expert who's based in Switzerland. So we wanted to have a global practice almost out of the box. All right. And so we hung up the shingle of eDiscovery Advisory because that's what we do. That's where we came from. That's our background. But very quickly, our clients took us in a much different direction, where we started looking at knowledge management and disaster recovery programs, and through our kind of network, we've been able to we found a client that was really looking for us to take that all hands on approach and help them build a COVID vaccine scheduling site. So within basically 10 days, we have working software to allow people to start scheduling people to put needles in arms, which goes live on Monday. So we've done this in 2 weeks, and we were planning on expanding that with our healthcare partners. And just, we wanted to make a difference in terms of this has a real impact. I always hear the phrase, this is eDiscovery, we're not saving lives. It's great to be in I'm the saving lives business. I mean, it actually, it makes me feel really good about what we're doing, and it's going to be interesting where it takes our business.
That's awesome, and I love the idea. And for anybody who's out there thinking about starting their own business, it's really important that you be able to pivot and sort of bob and weave right through wherever the journey takes you. So kudos for that. That's fantastic.
Well, thanks, Mike. And let me make a pointer on that, because I think, again, this is a journey for me, right? And I've had experience in terms of as a provider, as an independent, analyst. I've working with large and small eDiscovery providers, working in house. The only thing I haven't done is I worked at a law firm. So your experience is not one that I've had. But you've learned a lot and you mature a lot as you go through time. So, being in this space, one of the things that I had to realize, especially over the last few years as I'm maturing, is what are your strengths? And one of the things that I've realized is that one of my key strengths is adaptability, being able to do that bobbing and weaving,
Yeah.
and being able to take that and bring that to a business and then help with clients, right? We're used to in eDiscovery being in crisis mode all the time, which this is why I've probably thrived in this space. But now we've having now been self-aware to start learning those type of things, I think is a really important thing that I think everyone should be able to do. And I know ACEDS offers a pretty significant mentorship program to help people start doing that. And I know I've worked with some of your what's the word? Not students. So it's the some of your members. In a mentorship role.
Candidates.
Candidates, yes, that's exactly. And I think that's key to help continuing people to be self-aware about what they do and who they are.
Absolutely. All right, this has been great. Before we go, anything new and interesting coming up? Anything you want to share with the audience? I heard rumor that there might be a podcast in your future. What's that going to be about?
So yeah, I recently, I woke up in the middle of the night and said, you know what, I'm really curious about, lots of people, and I love talking to people. So I came up with the concept of creating a podcast called Out of Curiosity, which we're launching this week. And basically, it's I like talking to people, much like conversations, and really get into things that are just beyond just kind of here's your eDiscovery workflow, and here's the case that we're going to talk about today. I find that pretty boring. I like to find the human element around eDiscovery and learn more about people. So we've been really working hard on putting together kind of a really entertaining and enlightening people-based podcast called Out of Curiosity, as we mentioned, that we're launching this week. We have things like we're talking about the intersection of knowledge management, information governance. We talk about how people have grown. I had one conversation recently with someone. We were talking about how people use horoscopes and signs in terms of evaluating people in teams, and all those interesting conversations we're going to bring to have. And we have some interesting little bits to kind of get people entertained as well. So you never know what you're going to expect, but we're really excited about doing that, and we're going to try to roll that out on a weekly basis with both an audio and video podcast.
I look forward to being one of your unusual guests.
You're right in that criteria, man.
Where can people find the podcast?
People can find it on our website on eDiscovery Advisory, and we'll also be able to subscribe to it on Apple, on iTunes, and things like that. So we'll definitely add that to the notes here, and you'll start seeing more information around that.
Wherever you get your podcasts, as they say, right?
Exactly. Like and subscribe, baby.
Awesome, Jason. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're interested in our short form video interviews, you can find We Are ACEDS live in your LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook feeds, or check us out on the ACEDS YouTube channel, where you can watch all our previous interviews and live streams. Thanks so much, everyone, for joining us today. Jason, best of luck. Talk soon.
Thank you, Mike.